things are constantly changing and evolving. So right out the gate, I want to say that. So some things, it's just important to understand that things are always changing in terms of exams, and be prepared to write a lot. But they are at least consolidating a bit or becoming more accessible while you're in Australia. You don't have to fly back to Canada to do them. But to more directly kind of approach the question, I do think, like of my year, I think there was probably, 50 Canadians in my year. I think 7 of us matched back to Canada, but the 7 of us that matched back were the ones who aggressively wanted to match back to Canada. And I think 6 or 7 of us got our first choice in very competitive specialties, some that are only 1 or 2 spots in Canada. So it's very doable, but all of us had the mindset from the start. I think that if it's still a thing, tagging along and prepping for your examinations and following kind of the mindset of a lot of the US cohort that you'll be with, at least at, sorry, this is at UQ specifically, but prepping early, studying early, trying to make sure you've got good timelines in place. Something that I did, and I encourage lots of people through AusTrek who reach out to me, is if you're planning to come back for Christmas in Canada, try and arrange at least a 2-week elective. You can live at home and do your thing, but these add up on your resume and show that you've been at least working. So even if it's observership, even if it's just a 2-week rotation, every bit of kind of extra experience you can get in Canada is a huge factor. If you can try and get a full rotation back in Canada, that's amazing. I was never able to arrange one in Canada. I did multiple rotations, like electives, while I came back for Christmas breaks, but I was never actually able to do like a full rotation because it just didn't work with the UQ schedule. But what I did is I did through, and I'm sure it exists in other schools in Australia, you can find partnership schools in the States, or you can find schools in the States that are very amenable to this, and it's set up well. So if you can't go to Canada to get a rotation, it's still good to get experience elsewhere. So I did 2 months in the States. UQ has a partnership through one of the hospitals in New Orleans. So I did 2 months of intensive critical care in New Orleans and kind of built my resume that way. Some people do research. If that's something you like to do and something you're interested in and want to do a first or second author on a paper, that's something you can do to build your resume to come back to Canada. I did a lot of volunteer work in Australia. I did a lot of peer study group. I did a lot of teaching and clinical peer and mentorship, and I built my resume around that. So there's lots of ways to build yourself up, and that's kind of what I did. I focused a lot on my teaching. I marketed myself as a strong clinician with good scores on my exams, and with an aptitude for teaching, excitement for teaching. And that's how I packaged myself to the universities that I applied coming back to Canada, and got as many rotations, and very importantly got my reference letters, 3 reference letters within emergency from Canada or the States. You can have them from Australia, but I think it is helpful to get North America. So those rotations are pretty critical. This has probably changed a bit with COVID, but that's kind of what I did in coming back, and was very thankful I was able to. I think the last thing, I take too much time, but the other thing I would say is the people who are the most knowledgeable, like I think those of us who have been out and now coming and in Canada, the 3 of us on the panel, we may or probably have been involved in the medical student applications. I do IMG medical school applications, and so understanding kind of this end of things is important. But the people who are probably the most helpful to you are the people in the years ahead of you at school. And you'll find that the seniors in your cohorts, when I was first year, talking with the second years, third years, fourth years, are all very open to this. And you'll find the people that are pushing to come back, and following their steps is usually sometimes daunting, but very doable. And it's a good way to follow in the footsteps of those before you. It's what I did with people in front of me. It's what people after me did following me. And I'm quite certain that probably translates across most of your universities. I know University of Sydney has a super strong IMG cohort and kind of mentorship there between the different student groups. And I'm certain that it exists in Melbourne as well, and some of the other groups as well. So that's kind of how I did it coming back. I think going into the details of the different exams and timing is probably not super helpful right now. And it's not something I think you need to worry about right now. Just know that it is doable. But if you're planning to come straight back after residency, it is something that's going to take a bit more of your time, a bit more of your mental effort through medical school than some of your friends, and some of your friends will be partying in Peru, and you'll be sitting in a cold, trudging through Vancouver rain to get to Surrey Hospital to do a first year elective there. So you give and take as far as it goes, but it's very doable, and there's lots of people who'd be happy to mentor you.